what I wanted to do next is use another tool that Murphy gave us, and you've used on a homework, at least one homework, price indices. And I think those are going to be helpful here because in practice, the tax and benefit systems are complicated. I already mentioned one complication, that some of the programs only apply when there's layoffs. They only apply to people who aren't looking, who are looking for work. Other benefits only apply to families that don't have two adults in the household, a single parent family. They may be different across regions and different states or counties. Same thing on the tax side. There can be different tax rates for different types of households. And want to think about, well, are there ways that we can summarize that complexity rather than trying to understand all the pieces? And price index theory gives us a way to do that. I mentioned some of the complexities by demographics. Another set of complexity is kind of the margins that the taxes operate on. Some of the taxes are on dollars. So the payroll taxes is a tax on your payroll dollars. Others, like unemployment, are taxes on your employment status, not on your dollars. The unemployment benefit is millionaires can get unemployment benefit just the same as people in poverty. The issue with unemployment benefit is that you've been laid off and you're looking for work, not whether you're a millionaire or not. Now I've kind of referred to that benefit B as a tax on employment, implicit tax on employment. We have other types of policies that are implicit taxes on full-time employment, or implicit or sometimes explicit taxes. Our so-called Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, has a penalty on employers based on the number of full-time employees they have. And that's a little bit different than having a tax just on all employees, which Chicago once had for many years. We had what's called a head tax, and employers over 50 in the city had to pay a certain number of dollars per month per employee, regardless of whether they're part-time or full-time. So that's another dimension of complexity. I mentioned the demographics already. So the price index approach, one thing we can do with price indices is to define an average disincentive as, you might say, the inflation and the reward to work that would occur by removing those disincentives. So with the disincentives, the reward to work is low. How low varies across all these dimensions. If we remove the disincentive, the reward to work is higher. Again, varies across these disincentives. And we want to kind of summarize that in a single number that says, well, how much overall did the incentive to work increase? And price indices are very much up to the job. So let me give you a little bit of notation to do that. We're going to have different types of workers, and anyone of the same type has the same disincentives, if any. So type I, the employer cost of working is going to be WI. And if there weren't any disincentives, no taxes, no benefits based on working or the income from working, then this would also be the employee benefit. Whatever the employer's paying the employee would go entirely to the employee as a reward to working. But to the extent we have disincentives, the employee benefit from work is some fraction of the employer cost, and I'm calling that fraction tau, indexed by I, because again, that may vary by these different characteristics and situations that we've talked about. For example, the unemployment benefit we just talked about, tau would be the ratio of the benefit to how much you work when you earn when you work. How much your employer costs is when you're working. That would be an example. Here's another example, a little more complicated, where we have two programs. We have the unemployment benefit program That contributes to the tau. And then we also have a payroll tax at rate T that's distinct from tau. And that payroll tax also adds to the disincentive. When we add them together, you could also, of course, you can get more complex with more programs. You can think of interactions between, well, is there a tax on the unemployment benefits, those kind of issues. You can do all that here, and you're going to summarize it in tau. So now I've focused the question a little bit. How much would employer costs be different if instead of paying the full amount, they paid the worker benefit? And I'm thinking, because I'm drawing from price indices, I'm thinking, well, I want some kind of ratio of cost functions. I haven't shown you exactly where this cost function comes from. That's kind of how I'm approaching it. When Murphy talked about inflation, he did a ratio of cost functions, right? He's comparing two price vectors. I think for him it was like this year's price vector to last year's price vector. Well, I want to do the same thing. I want to compare two factor price vectors, not this year versus last year. I mean, we could do that as well, but I want to compare the after-tax price vector to the full employer cost price vector. I want to compare those two and ask, is there a single number that will summarize the difference between those? So that's the approach we're going to take. We just